guys, welcome back to another episode of Dubai or Not Dubai. Now this week, as promised, I'm going to give you a Dubai market update. Obviously with everything that's going on regionally with the conflict, there has been quite a few changes. I have been keeping everyone in the loop on my Instagram, but if you don't follow me on there, I'm going to go everything into a lot of depth, so stay tuned. The first thing to note about Dubai is that the economy is dictated by fundamentals, not emotions. Obviously, a lot of people at the moment are driven by the emotions because of the media, because of the headlines. It's super important to remember that Dubai isn't built on that. It's built on infrastructure issued by the leadership, it's built on vision, it's built on future. And I think the people that are here on the ground in Dubai, this is something that is kind of bothering us a little bit when it comes to media portraying things in a slightly different light to what it actually is. So that's kind of like my key takeaway. The economy is dictated by fundamentals, not emotions, here in Dubai. So this is going to be a little bit buyer, seller, broker, the whole thing. So if you're any one of those or you're just interested in a market update, this one's going to be for you. Now, what's super important for both buyers, investors, or people that already have property that are looking to sell or are unsure what to do with their asset, you have to remember the original reason why you invested in Dubai. What was the original strategy? Because we have to remember that the long-term strategy, it still stands here. Dubai has come back from so many things, this obviously being another one, COVID, the floods, the crash, all of these different times in Dubai, the economy has actually bounced back stronger than before. So the key takeaway for this section alone is, if you're a seller, you have to remember what the long-term objective was originally for your investments. Now, I did a YouTube and also a reel a couple months back on different strategies of how sellers kind of dictate what their strategy is going to be, and it usually falls under 3. So if your strategy was long-term, it still is long-term. This is just a tiny blip in the road, not in the strategy itself, because as I said, it is going to come back. It's just about having that patience. Now, it's a different story if we're talking about liquidity or personal circumstances, but if we're just looking at the situation itself and you're a seller here, you have to remember why you originally invested here. You'll also find that patient investors win in all markets. Now, investors, I'm talking buying and selling, both, you all fall into that category. The investors that catch the bottom and sell at the top don't necessarily always win. The market has cycles, okay? So if you're patient and you stick with your original strategy, you're more likely to come out on top and achieve that strategy that you originally had in the first place. The balance. Now, the key here is to basically stay liquid whilst also staying invested, which is a difficult thing for some people. So your portfolio as an investor has to be diversified more now than ever. So a strategy that a lot of people, sellers, or people that own property are using is, let's say they only have one asset, okay? I'm actually going to flip the camera around and go to the whiteboard for this one. So what I mean about diversifying your portfolio is quite simply, if you have just one property up here worth X amount, you're relying on that one property to carry your strategy in a time where the market is slightly uncertain in terms of we can't predict where it's going to go in the short term, meaning the next 3 to 6 months. So if you wanted to make this safer, what a lot of people are doing is they're exiting this at a sensible price. They're not making massive premium, they're exiting at market price. With this exit money, basically essentially what they're doing is they're dividing it into smaller assets, smaller in monetary value, not smaller in the bigger picture. Example, they might have a studio in Business Bay, they might have a commercial space in JLT, and they might be able to have a villa in Zermatt Hills too. Obviously that's all dependent on what the value of that original asset is, but this is just an example of the way that people are diversifying. It just brings your risk appetite down a lot lower, just while things are still a little bit uncertain. So that also then opens up the idea to staying liquid but staying invested, because if you're exiting that one asset that you have, you're diversifying into a couple of smaller monetary assets that brings your risk appetite lower, potentially boosts passive income currently. You can also set aside to be liquid if you did want to take some of that out. 3 things that people are feeling right now. The first thing is understanding. For buyers that are still interested in Dubai, for people that live here, for people that have bought here, there is more to Dubai than just tax-free and sunshine, okay? It runs a lot deeper for that than a lot of people. It's actually like a way of life. They have better opportunities here, whether that be in work, lifestyle, schooling for their children, any of that kind of thing. The second thing is confidence. Has confidence dropped? Yes. I would be lying to you if I said it didn't, but the key bit in here is, has it dropped in Dubai investors, like Dubai-based investors? No. Has it dropped more in the international region? Yes. Developers are not giving extra discounts. That is a huge thing. All of these discounts that you're seeing were in line with the month of Ramadan and Eid. Celebrating Eid every single year, there are Eid offers, Eid discounts. It just so happened that that aligned with the time of the conflict. Third thing is patience. It sounds crazy, but we're still only 4 and a bit, nearly 5 weeks in. 5 weeks once this is posted. That is not long enough for people to be able to make a decision on what they want to do. It's way too early for Dubai-based investors that have been in the market for 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's too early. Off plan, massive, really positive takeaway for the market right now. Developers are not adjusting starting prices, they're only adjusting payment plans. This is huge, and you kind of have to think of it in a way as like, they're so confident in where the market still is and where it will be in the next couple of months and the next years to come, that they don't feel the need to drop the prices. That is such a good sign. All they're doing is they're adjusting payment plans so that it's a little bit easier for people internationally. New projects are also dealing to sell out. Now, yes, they are selling out, but a lot of the developers are just launching a slightly smaller section of what their full inventory is, which is great. It gives people a good boost. It means that they're being maybe slightly more reserved, but it's helping this aspect of them not having to drop their starting prices, which you might say to me, well, that's not beneficial for me, because if the prices drop, maybe I'd invest. That's not what we want the market to be. We were in very much a seller's market. We're starting to dip into potentially a buyer's market. In either market, it's good for whichever side you're on. This for me is a very positive thing at the moment right now. My favourite slide, the bubble. I can guarantee you, and I'd love you to drop it in the comments, if you've ever heard or you've ever said yourself that Dubai is in its own little bubble, real estate related, okay? That bubble does not exist. The reason why it doesn't exist is you need 3 things for a real estate market to be classed as a bubble. You need extreme leverage, meaning high debt to purchase. You need prices detached from the demand, and you also need liquidity to disappear. That does not exist here in Dubai. None of those 3 things exist, so therefore we are not in a bubble. You're investing in Dubai, not the project or the property that you're purchasing. One thing to note is that Dubai is mainly built on cash and equity purchases, which is a big difference to some of the other global markets like the US, for example, where the majority of the market is mortgages, which is then dictated by interest rates, which then drives the market. Here in Dubai, because we're mainly cash and equity based, it means people can hold their assets for longer, because their liquid cash is just sitting in an asset rather than sitting in their bank account. So it's not attached to anything. The demand here in Dubai, as I said before, the demand and also the fundamentals is structural. And what I mean by structural is not quite literally like buildings. I mean it's fundamentals like population growth, business relocation, opportunities, easy access to visas, all of this kind of thing. Dubai management, in terms of like brand management, is second to none. And I think that's why people perceive it to be a bubble, because they do such a good job. But when you actually break it down to the 3 things that create a bubble in the real estate market, whether that be anywhere in the world, we do not fall into that category. Dubai has cycles, not bubbles. Really simple. Every single market has cycles, no matter where you are in the world. We are no different. And we're going through and entering a new cycle now, or potentially in the next couple of months. The narratives are emotional. They come from headlines, not from numbers. Huge. And lastly, at the moment what we're seeing is a sediment shock in buyers, sellers, banks, everything, you name it, of course, because people are worried, especially for people that haven't experienced anything like this before. But it's just an adjustment, it's not naivety. Firstly, this has just come to light. It's projections, it's thinking in terms of what's happened previously. So this is not based off anything, this is just what has been circulating, which I can very much see coming out as being true. Banking and financing, i.e. mortgaging. They're still honouring valuations that were made prior to the conflict happening. There may be a couple of small adjustments, but all in all, they're still honouring that for transfers. Second thing, they could potentially start to go down. Now this is only because in previous years, we've basically seen banks be less inclined to finance a property, even if the transactions have not slowed or dropped, just given the situation. So that is a potential that could happen, which basically means that there's deals to be made. If you're a pre-approved mortgage buyer that were thinking to buy before the conflict, I would be looking at buying right now, before they potentially start increasing down payments, or before they start lessening, or they're less inclined to do the bank mortgage valuations, and even potentially the pre-approvals. So that's just something that I thought was very interesting. If you are a client, or you're a broker that has clients that were looking to purchase a mortgage, this is definitely a conversation to revert back to. Lastly, this was literally announced a couple of days ago, and it made me so incredibly happy because I just was like, this is why I live and I work in this city. The fundamentals repeat, and it all goes back to leadership. The leadership of Dubai have just released $1 billion dirham to support the economy, specifically in business sectors, just across Dubai alone. That's literally like £250,000, just in Dubai. The leadership have just been like, yeah, we're going to roll this out starting from the 1st of April over the next 3 to 6 months to help support businesses. They are thinking so many steps ahead for anything that's to come in the future. They're setting themselves up to not fail, to not let it crumble. And I think a lot of people thought that during this Dubai was going to, and I promise you it's not, because of the leadership that they have built. The vision has not changed because of what's going on. It's actually almost strengthened it for the future. Which is why if you've not been to Dubai, if you've not lived in Dubai, it's very difficult to see that. You know, you see the headlines and you're like, you know, how is it possible that they're doing this, this and this? How is it possible that it hasn't fully dropped and crashed and everyone's going crazy and everyone's fleeing? No, there's a lot of us still here on the ground that believe in what Dubai is building. The vision has not changed. This, rolling out 1 billion dirhams, is just a prime example of Dubai. That basically sums up this week's YouTube channel. Now, I think there's a lot to take away from this. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to deep dive into those specific questions a little bit more, so drop them in the comments below. Secondly, I'm going to be posting a lot more reels to do with the Dubai real estate market. So whether you're a buyer, seller or a broker, stay tuned because there's going to be lots coming your way with regards to how this all plays out. And equally, if you do have a property here or you are still looking to invest, let's have a discussion. It's not going to be pushed into either or. Everybody's personal circumstance weighs heavily on this. Yes, the regional tension, the regional conflict is going to play a part, but it's also down to you and your personal circumstances as well. But for now, I'll see you guys next week.